Hey everyone, this is Taylor Saul with Applied CAX. Thanks for joining us. Matt Martin here is going to be going through our NX CAD webinar. We have a series of these that we do every quarter. We're actually going to be looking into some topics to review in December now that NX 12 is live. If there's anything that we can do for you, please reach out to me, Taylor Saul, at Applied CAX. My email is tsaul@appliedcax.com. Some of the ways that we help our NX CAD clients around the country are foundation training in NX to get your team on the same footing, customized training to guide design teams modeling and drafting standards, NX configuration for the enterprise, so NX custom site settings, templates, and seed parts, NX open programming for specialized processes, hosting and running regional NX users groups events in Seattle and Portland. We just had one in Seattle focused on aerospace and defense, and we'll be hosting another one coming up in Portland this March. And then ongoing first line support for maintenance clients as well. Okay, Matt, I'm going to kick it over to you. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Make sure I get the microphone over here. So my name is Matt Martin. I've been with Applied since they started about 2008, and I've been doing this for about 15 years. Applied CAX is a combination of two different companies, Predictive Engineering and Sherpa Design. We've got about 20 engineers here at the Sherpa side. We do mechanical engineering services. We've got 2 veteran Team Center architects on staff, and we've got a diverse range of experience and backgrounds from plastic injection molding, castings, OEM laser positioning systems, night vision equipment. It runs the gamut. Jump in real quick, and well, the predictive engineering side takes care of pretty much anything that you would mesh. So CFD, any kind of analysis, LS-DYNA. Siemens just picked up Star CCM, so we're looking at also getting into that product as well. So you have decided to get into model-based definition, or PMI. So in the NX speak, PMI is product manufacturing information. This it's more than just 3D drafting. It is applying PMI, or model-based definition entities, in model views on the model itself. Given that you have the model to work with instead of a 2D drafting view, it's easier to convey information to downstream users. So it's do you have to convert everything on a drawing sheet, a 2D drawing sheet, into 3D PMI? Probably not, but we'll go through some of the issues with converting that over. Drawings can be converted one by one or in a batch mode. I'll show you some of the batch mode information as we progress forward. Some of the limitations. So there are some things that you cannot convert to PMI. Approximate, projected, manually edited dimensions, as you would kind of expect, you can't do those in PMI anyway, so it's not going to take them over. One of the things that's not going to take over, at least right now, is a bolt circle. So bolt circles are not part of the PMI definition as far as NX 11 goes. It looks like to be added in NX 12. Also, if you have a drawing view that is not up to date, it's not going to pick that up as something that I can convert into PMI. So it's just things to be cognizant of when you start getting into this world. There is a settings file that's buried inside of your install directory that controls everything to do with convert to PMI. It's one of the better ones I've seen. There's actually a list of all the different settings, what those settings are used for, examples of what you can put for the values for those settings, and down at the very bottom is actually the settings themselves invoked, so you can then change how they are created. So this is something that you would want to use if you're going to do a batch process. And again, it's something to be aware of, that the easy button never exists for CAD or anything that we do with this kind of stuff. So I'll show you some of this as we go live into the demo. The settings file can be used to adjust things as far as like your log file location. You can actually save it back into Team Center. Your action on errors, you can actually have it stop or abort the that particular conversion if it runs into a bunch of errors, saying I've run into too many errors with this one. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to move on, and it'll be in the log file showing you what happened. I've set my settings file to automatically create an MBD prefix for all my views that are created. One thing the Convert to PMI will do is take all the views that are on your drawing and put them into model views in your model. So your normal canned, back, bottom, front, isometric will be that list will be added to bring in the PMI views that are associated to the drawings themselves. You also have a settings dialog within the Convert to PMI dialog. You can click on that to test out your settings, see what is working, what isn't working, the kind of issues you're going to run into. You can, if you have PMI that you want to expose to a target assembly, for instance, you've got 5 parts in an assembly. They got some datum structures you want to have elevated to the assembly level. It is theoretically possible that you can target the assembly to expose that PMI into and show component PMI at the assembly level. You could also have a drawing that's completely separate from the master and then direct the PMI export to the master file itself. When you do a Convert to PMI, it writes a report into the part file. If you have PMI application available to you, when you turn on that application, you'll get a new tab in your display part properties, and that's the converted drawing item tab that will show up, and it gives you a full report of everything that it has done. You can also make one of those model-based definition or PMI views the work view, right-click on it, and then open the conversion report, and it'll drill directly to that view itself. So there's a couple different ways you can get to the same information. Batch processing, there is an executable in your NX bin folder. If you're not familiar with the structure of NX 11, you have a UGI base dir, which is your install folder. There used to be a UGI root dir that went to a bunch of executables. That's no longer, that's been deprecated in NX 11, and now there's an NX bin folder that has a bunch of different executables, command line executables that you can run against NX part files. Convert to PMI does what it says here is it loads the part with specific load options, does some validations, and then basically it's going to go to your settings file to be told what to do with that part and how to convert all that over. And demo time. Better with demo anyway. So I have a drawing here that I want to convert to PMI. So on my home tab, I've got all my drawing dimensions, annotations, everything they would normally expect for drafting. Then under drafting tools, I've got a convert to PMI button right here. So when I click on that, it's default set to convert the entire drawing. And I do have preview set. So if I look at my preview, it's going to show me the things that it can bring over and the things that it can't or will not be highlighted. So the idea here is to go in and figure out why things aren't being translated over. So just cancel that and then figure out, I'm going to take a look at this guy here and find out why it's not wanting to convert to PMI. So I look at the first object. The first object is the threaded, the cylindrical bore of this threaded call out here. And the second object is actually the drafting arc, the silhouette curve. So I want to change that to the actual edge of the hole itself. And I close that. I go back to convert to PMI and I see that it picked that up. It's now highlighting as an object that's going to translate over. Go back into convert to PMI and I've got another one down here that's not playing nice as well. So I'm going to double click on this and edit it. I'll take a look at the first object and the second object, and let's see, I might need to grab that face and then look at the convert to PMI. Still doesn't want to do it. I got to do the other side as well. So first object here, and I want to get the endpoint. Still doesn't want to play. So let's see if I can get that bottom face, and I should have grabbed it a better way. Grab that face there, convert to PMI. I'm gonna have to troubleshoot that one a little bit deeper. Down here I have a view that is not up to date. And when I go into convert to PMI again, it's not showing that it's those annotations are available. So I'm going to update that view. And I can also see that I've got a dimension here that's probably not going to convert over. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that right now. Take a look at my second object, first object, go ahead and grab that one there. And convert to PMI. Now those are alive, I can start using them. If I look at this view down here, I actually labeled this one snapshot view because I wanted to set one up like this. If I go into the settings for it, it's actually locked as a snapshot. It is possible to do associative extracted edges, old terminology for NX. For really large complex parts, you extract those edges into drawing views, then you can draft against those drawing views. Well, if I do that, then convert to PMI isn't going to be as robust. When I go into the convert to PMI tool, this is not even highlighting at all that it's a view that I can convert over to PMI. So like I mentioned before, the batch method is definitely a viable option, but you have to make sure that your dimensions are set properly. Before I do execute this, I'm going to go over to my machine part and I'm going to make it the displayed part. I'll take a look at my model views here. And I just have my canned model views. Trimetric is the work part. Go ahead and set that to home. Go back to the parent and back into drafting. You may notice that there's automatic application switching happening in the background. I'm not actually doing anything on my keyboard to switch between drafting and modeling. It's a new thing in NX 11, which is I find very handy. So back to my drafting tools. I'm going to convert to PMI, and I've got everything that I want, and I execute this. Let's just say OK. And I'm going to go back to make this a displayed part. Look at my model views. I now have some auxiliary views that are showing up in here. I have my PMI node is now alive, and it shows me all of the entities that are brought over. So if I go into my auxiliary view, interesting. It's not showing. Make displayed part, modeling, application, PMI is turned on. Oh, here we go. Was I on camera views? So it picked up my auxiliary view, or rather a detail view, even though detail views aren't necessarily something you do in PMI, and it's a detail of a section view, so that's how it pulled that in. And my visualization settings here are not playing nice with showing this off. I go back here to an ortho view. I'm going to orient my custom views here. Oh, I don't want that to, I do want it to fit, but it's not really fitting. I put a 1.25 dimension here, and I labeled it face because I wanted to make sure that it actually is assigning those faces. And I've got a 2-degree value here that has, if I double click on the dimension itself and look at the selected objects, one's going to be a vector and the other one's going to be a face. And cycle through. This one is a cylindrical dimension, and it picked up on the cylindrical edges that were in the section view. But I can edit this and push it the selected objects, I'm going to go ahead and grab that cylindrical face as well and bring that in. Same thing with anything else that I want to have as far as like a cylindrical dimension. Down here to my my auxiliary, another section view that was created, and I got a 1-inch dimension here, and it's only going to the actual section lines themselves. Again, I can go in and adjust associated objects and pick that face to the bottom face there. Now when I highlight it, those faces highlight, and it's much easier to convey that information in the PMI world. And back to trimetric. Let's see if I got it picked up the names from the views that I have in my drawing sheet. Oh, and here's MBD sheet 1, so it's picking up the notes that I had on the sheet, and ended up with a note down here from my title block, and then another note up here in space. If I orient the view, flatten that out, and here's the note that it created for me that pulled it in off the drawing sheet itself. If I right click on this and go to open conversion report, I can see that the annotations that are brought in, what the annotations are, and any kind of special labeling that may be in there as well. So I brought in the notes, even the special characters that are required for making it bold and underlined. So pretty quickly, I converted over a PMI view converted over a drawing into PMI. I've got another part here. Do the same thing. This is a relatively simple part. Go to my drafting tools, convert to PMI, and you'll see the different entities that are showing up and not showing up. This one has the center mark that will show as a preview that it's going to translate over, and I've got a surface finish symbol on here. So if let's say you're a CAM programmer, you're doing NX CAM, you're getting in the drawing and the master part file, but you want to be able to leverage some of the PMI that you can consume in NX CAM. You can use a convert to PMI to pick up those entities that you want. So I can just switch this down to annotation and pick up, say, the surface finish symbol here. If I have any say plus minus tolerances on there, I want to push anything that has to do with threaded hole callouts in. But the rest of this I could probably pick up off of my my 3D model itself. So just say okay on that one, and I've only taken over the things that I want. Displayed part. Go to my model views here. I've got MBD ortho. And that one actually didn't make a new new view there. The one thing I found on this one though is when I double click on my thread call out, I want associated objects. This is a pattern that I have in here. I can go through and manually pick up the other items that are in this pattern. But I've also found that if I come back here to ortho 2, when I create a PMI dimension on the fly, when I'm using the regular PMI operations, I can go back and pick up the pattern that it's also coming from. But here, it's picking up the entire block. That's probably not something I want to do. I'd have to go through and manually pick all those. However, if I use PMI, place a dimension on right there, just the way that my settings are set is going to pick up a kind of an ISO type. When I double click on that and go to associated objects, it's automatically picking up that that pattern in my part file. So there could be a setting that I'm missing. I'm still digging into this one to see if I can figure out how to make that connect to the pattern itself a little bit better. But it is a 3D PMI issue that I'm working out. And back to the block part itself. So I could take that information over. Now, did it actually take over my, yep, right there, my surface finish call out. So I've got a surface finish call out that's going to polish it to 0.05 microradians, and that pulled over into the PMI world. Now, can I use this in programming NX CAM or NX CMM? Certain entities you can, other entities are left behind, and that list seems to be growing as far as the entities that you can use for downstream applications. But surface finish is definitely one of those I can pick up in NX CAM. So if you are a programmer, you can pull out this information. So you can pull out dimensional tolerances, surface finish, information as far as thread information that goes on the part itself. Should you convert everything on the drawing? Generally, I would say no. The 3D model-based definition PMI approach affords you the ability to use reduced dimensions because the 3D model itself is the master. So overall length, width, height, thickness, those can be extracted from the model itself. The CAM programmer doesn't necessarily need to know that a pocket is 1 inch in from the 2 edges that it's in from. You can just measure that and put toolpaths against it. If it's a critical tolerance where that is, then sure, you need to have the plus minus tolerancing information to be placed to help drive that the CAM programming. And again, this comes down to your business processes. If it's a part that you've decided to move to model-based definition, but all your parts are done with regular NX drafting, the convert to PMI could be something that you do on an as-needed basis. So the part changes, you up-rev it, convert to PMI, push things over to the PMI world, and detail it out that way. That's probably the easiest way to do it. If you have released information, that's going to be a process that you're going to have to figure out inside your own organization because you are changing that UG master data set when you apply the PMI entities to it. Just opening up here to see if we have any questions. If there are any questions, you feel free to contact me at mmartin@appliedcix.com. So I have a question here of, do you have some examples of PMI that have a large positive impact on speed or quality? That's a good question. The PMI can assist with CAM programming and CMM programming if it's applied properly, both either from the 2D drafting side or the 3D PMI side. It all depends on the consuming system. So NX does a pretty good job of consuming its own stuff. We're seeing some issues with some entities not being translated over as well as they could be with other CMM programs, and it just the ability to reduce the amount of information you have to place on the part file if you're doing model-based definition can save in drafting time. So that drafting time allows the designers to design more iterations, design faster. The information in 3D is more easily translated out there into the world, so that if I have a let's go ahead and get out of this one. I can go into a setting. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one. I'll just hide that one. So the PMI entity that I placed on here, it automatically counts up 12 because that's how many that I put in the feature pattern count. But I may also be able to pick up, since this is the same up here, oops, get selected objects, select that hole, and maybe select The second pattern is up here as well. Well, it's not going to be so nice about that one. Select those other holes. Now when I select on my PMI entity, everything that highlights in green is associated to that object. Although the associated objects here aren't necessarily highlighting as well as I would like. So I don't have this is in a 2D drawing view. I would have however many numbers, the number of drilled holes I'd have on this face and the number of drilled holes I'd have on this top face called out in 2 different views. I can just do one shot here and call out all drilled holes from one call out. So I can do reduced dimensions that way. Again, it's really easy to just go in and measure face to face. If I want to know how wide this is, I just measure it and it tells me the width of it. When I post, there's another question about the PowerPoint itself. When I post up the video, I'll work with my web guy about putting up a link to a PDF version of the PowerPoint for download. So if there are no more questions, I'll close this session and look forward to other webinars in the not too distant future. Mostly around NX 11, so we'll do some new stuff in NX 12 as that begins to gain traction out there in the world. Thank you for attending.